Unless you've been avoiding social media for the past 24 hours, I'm sure most of you watching this video right now will have heard of the news that Chipsa, the unluckiest Doomfist in the world, has been signed as a player to the Philadelphia Fusion for the 2020 Overwatch League season. As you can probably imagine, this has thrown the internet into a frenzy and created chaos that has been widely witnessed across Twitter, Reddit and Twitch, with strong and controversial opinions being voiced by multiple parties. With the main eruption of debate now beginning to settle a little, I've decided to guide you through some of the different arguments being presented from both sides, whilst giving my own personal thoughts and opinions on them, as well as Chipsa's move itself. The obvious place to start therefore is with the official announcement from Philly. At first I thought this meant that Chipsa was joining the Fusion as an affiliated streamer, similar to the deals that Kabaji and Emong had previously been on, but it soon became very apparent this was not the case, and Chipsa would actually be joining the team as a DPS player. It's fair to say that this reveal was a shock to the system, and even now, there's still plenty of people who are in complete denial that this is real, instead believing it's all just one big debate. In response, unsurprisingly, plenty of people came at this announcement with some major backlash, but none perhaps as strongly as Jane, and it was his entrance into the debate surrounding the Chipsa discussion that really kickstarted the drama last night. Jane's first tweets on the matter pointed out the fact that Chipsa's brother, Christopher, is currently an assistant coach on the Philadelphia Fusion, before going on to suggest that nepotism was the key reason for Chipsa being signed, ahead of much more deserving players in his eyes from Tier 2. This accusation has been met with strong rebuttal from a number of streams and tweets in response to Jane. Chipsa came out and said on stream that in fact his brother at first had been strongly against the team picking him up, as he knew from first appearances it would damage his credibility. Indeed, many other pros, Christopher himself on Sideshow's stream, and indeed the Philadelphia Fusion owner Tucker, went on to echo this, explaining that the decision to sign Chipsa was not influenced by Christopher in any way. It's for that reason, with so many people coming across with the same statement, both from within the organisation as well as trusted voices of players not even with the team, I personally believe that this is true, and as a result in the case of Chipsa, it's my belief that nepotism wasn't a reason for him being signed. Now I know a lot of people have gone on to heavily criticise Jane following this, as for the next few hours he went on to double down on his thoughts in further tweets, a short Twitter stream, and even a discussion one-on-one with Sideshow on Twitch. Whilst I understand people falling into one camp or another on this debate, I do think it is important to first see the arguments that Jane was trying to make. Overall, it appears to me that his major grievance with the pickup of Chipsa was that it undermines the path to pro system and almost insulted those involved in the tier 2 grind, wanting their efforts rewarded. Rather to them, it's streamers with high marketability who are now seemingly getting preferential treatment, an argument I've seen echoed amongst plenty of tier 2 players. As things heated up, Jane went into more detail on what he sees as major problems within the competitive Overwatch tier 2 scene and path to pro, as well as progressing to the debate to problems within esports and the Overwatch League itself. There's honestly too much to talk about here specifically, so I'd urge anyone who wants to listen to or read at all to check out his Twitter or the Twitch VODs on the matter to hear some of the other thoughts he had yesterday. Looking at it all though, it can't be denied that Jane does bring up some excellent points, particularly in regard to the current state of the tier 2 scene, which I think unanimously everyone can agree is in a terrible position and is clearly broken and in need of a lot of work. But by going out and making these arguments in direct association with the Chipsa situation is where I believe Jane has got it wrong. Ultimately, he is trying to fight the right cause, but he's unleashed his attack on the wrong opponent, and that is why so many have responded so negatively to him, so hopefully he recognises why this is the case upon reflection. After taking a closer look at this move as a whole, I've come to the conclusion that in many ways, whilst it isn't a move that I personally would have taken, I can completely see why Philadelphia have gone in the direction they have. Let me explain firstly why I don't see this as a move that undermines tier 2 competitive Overwatch and the path to pro system, as Jane believes. I think the key differentiator in this specific example is the context of Chipsa joining the team. Before his arrival, Philly had on the books 4 DPS players signed for the 2020 season: Carpe, EQO, Ivy and Hisu, and technically, as far as I'm aware, Snello still takes a spot on the roster with his 2-way contract, effectively meaning the 5 DPS slots were taken in the 12-man roster. It's quite clear therefore that there really wasn't a realistic DPS spot open for a top contenders prospect to come into the team and genuinely fight for a spot. One thing that can be said of these 4 players though, is that none of them immediately come to mind for their Doomfist play, which considering his strength and importance within this current meta, is arguably a major weakness of the Fusion heading into next season. Therefore, the decision has been clearly made that the team is happy enough with their current players at tank and support that they can sacrifice their final available roster spot in order to plug up this gap. This is where I'll refer to Tucker's tweets regarding this exact position the team found themselves in. I would like to think those of us being genuinely serious for a minute would rate Sparkle as the best Doomfist in the world right now, but to be fair to Chipsa, he is brilliant at the hero, and it will only be once he gets the chance to face off against other highly rated Doomfist players that we'll learn for sure his true Doomfist ranking. Not to mention he may very well have been a top trial performer. As a Doomfist specialist alone though, he ends up being the perfect fit for the team, as an all-round quality flex support would, as Tucker explains, ended up being its own problem due to a very talented player finding themselves on the bench for most of the season and consequently receiving less resources to develop with. The other key aspect as to why Chipsa is the perfect fit in this instance is because of his marketability on stream. With it likely that he'll be on the bench unless there's a Doomfist meta, he can still end up being a very valuable asset to the team even when he's not playing, and the Fusion Org, by bringing all his fans with him and being able to stream when he's not in running for a starting spot. This explains why this isn't a move that undermines tier 2, and I wouldn't say this lightly, as I do believe that players such as Vasility, Fisher, Leaf, Asking, Molfik, etc. do deserve opportunities to play in the Overwatch League, but this is where I think the issues of nepotism and scouting come more into question across the league as a whole, as plenty of other contenders players have been signed even if they aren't of the same standard in my opinion, but this is a debate, at least in my opinion, doesn't apply very well to this specific instance. Instead, it hopefully shows how Philly have looked to solve an issue they had practically, but also in a way that makes complete business sense, with the marketing team probably excited to utilise the fact they have two brothers now on the same team. And this is a decision they have every right to make, and over time we will learn whether or not it ends up being successful. This isn't to say though that Fusion don't deserve some criticism. However, it has nothing to do with them signing Chipsa, as that's totally within their rights, as I have explained, as it does make some sense. If there is any criticism, it has to do with the apparent confirmation that they will definitely be sticking with Sado as their only main tank option, which certainly in my mind is a very questionable decision. Sado has not been great for the past 2 seasons, with the main tank position consistently being the weakest aspect of Philly's rosters. I'm sure the coaches and all probably have a lot of faith in him and his ability to improve in 2020, but if results aren't shown, and Sado continues to look as weak as he has up to now, especially in early performances, then I expect the backlash on their choice not to strengthen the main tank position to be huge over the coming months. The last point I'd like to make on the Chipsa pickup is that I don't think anyone should be directing any abuse or complaints in his direction, as quite simply he hasn't done anything personally wrong. Even if you have big problems with his toxic attitude that he's displayed in the past, the fairest judgment that we can pass is by seeing how he performs on stage and works inside the Fusion setup, as this will at the end of the day determine whether or not he was a good roster pickup or not. As I mentioned before, if you are to be critical of anyone in regards to this move, it should be Philadelphia themselves, as it certainly appears they've gone all in on Sado, and if the main tank position proves to be their weak link for another year, then people can have genuine issues with the direction the team has taken here, but only time will tell on that point. Oh, but on that note, I've had enough of the Chipsa drama for one day, so I'm going to end my video here, and if you have reached the end, I'd like to thank you for watching. As I mentioned last night, I'll be back later today for a double upload, as I discuss all the other player moves that have been happening across the Overwatch League over the past few weeks. So if you have enjoyed and don't want to miss out, then please like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter for this continuing competitive Overwatch coverage and content. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.